Hi, I'm Ellie Sutton.
And I'm Lillian Clark. Now we're going to talk about More Than an English Language Learner, Testimonials of Immigrant High School Students by Estrella Olivares Orellana.
And we'll start off with the summary portion. So with all the labels that go around in this world, this article focuses especially on immigrant students from El Salvador living in New York who really want to break free from the often restricting label of an English language learner. I feel like that's something that they carry with them as soon as they walk through the doors, even before they walk through the doors on their paperwork. And anyways, that's something that they just kind of want to break free from. Another label is the SIFE label, and that's students that have interrupted formal education. And so they feel like they're being pushed out of the system and just kind of through the process. A lot of the times they don't often get to see the clear pathway to graduation, yet it's something that's always enforced and talked about in a goal, but they aren't always set up in the direct course to be able to do that. Another part of this article talks a lot about the trauma that these students face, oftentimes when they are detained, and until years later that they're able to be reunited with their family. And this would also cause an interruption and an added stress to their learning environment. It is already crazy hard to learn a new language, let alone to be separated from your family, to be living in fear, any of those kind of things. And so it's just kind of, this article talked a lot about just like the different struggles that they go through. But what was really neat was to see the author's take on it and how they just want to shift that power dynamic. They want to be able to make the students the ones who are informing the educators of their experiences. And so oftentimes these students will feel invisible in the school education system, yet this author's desire is so that the immigrant students in America can feel seen and known.
Yeah, and a lot of the problem is that the testing is like just so heavy and so weighted, but it only tests in English language skills, which as new immigrants in the country they might not know or have any background in, and then also math. And so it's just like really limited, and it doesn't show that they have so many capabilities, that they've already learned so much from their experiences and from the education that they might have had before they left their home country. And so just these labels are very deficit mindset, and it doesn't give them an opportunity to show how intelligent and how talented an individual they all are. So the author really wanted us to shift to a resource perspective and just think about things in a more holistic way so that we can better help these students. And I guess my favorite part of the article was the individual stories, the immigration stories of the people that were interviewed, just because I thought it was so interesting, and it helps us to understand that these people have been through so much and that they are so talented and already just honestly more capable than most other people in the classroom that are with them. Like I can't do the things that they did or went through, but they already did all that, and they succeeded, and so they've already done so much. There was one girl, the first one's name was Carla, and she was raised by like a 12-year-old little girl back in her home country, and when she was immigrating, she got separated from her family, and she suffered like all of the terrible things that happen in Las Hileras, but then at the end she just got back with her grandma and with her aunt, and she was just so happy to be home and to have a hope for the future. So I think it's really important that as teachers we can help with that and help them to continue forward and meet the things that they want to do.
Okay, we will now talk about the praxis portion. So as I talked about earlier, and we kind of talked about both, is just the importance of labels, but also the importance of labels. And just one thing that I want to focus on, and when I want to apply my classroom, is to be able to let the students kind of pick their labels and what they want to identify as or by. And so something I could do is at the beginning of the school year, I kind of just send out a message either to their parents or to them, or both, or to do an activity and just to say how they identify. We have the stats, we have exactly where they're from and all that kind of things, but a lot of the times they want to be called a certain thing, or they don't want to go by a specific label, or they just want to fit in. And so kind of just seeing what their perspective is, and just make an extra effort to get to know them and see what I can do to help them.
Yeah, I guess what I want to apply from this is just trying to get to know my students more holistically as an individual and as a person, and be curious about their experiences and what their family is like and where they're from and how long they've been here and what their experience has been like in school and in those English language learning programs in the past. Yeah, I just want to take the time to get to know my students and what they feel like their life is and what their experiences are, so that I can know where they're at and be better prepared to help and support them in all of the ways. Yeah, because I just feel like every student is so different and they all have such different experiences in their immigration, but also just in school. So I want to make sure that as a teacher, I can hear their voices and see what they would prefer to do, what they would prefer to learn, and how they feel, if they feel like they're doing good and if they feel proud of all of the things that they've learned, even if their English isn't perfect yet. I want to congratulate them for that. And if they feel like they're really behind and they're self-conscious about different things, I want to also be aware of that so that I can support them in whatever way possible. So I think it's just really important that I, as a teacher, can take the time to get to know my students.
Okay, we will now talk about the reflection portion. So overall, I thought this article was very helpful and I really liked it, and just a little bit more of what the teachers can do to help our immigrant students. And kind of what I talked about earlier about the author's take on it is that there's so much more that we can learn from our students. Yes, we may be the teachers, but there's so much more that they can teach us, and then we can then make a difference from when we're willing to kind of like flip those roles and flip the switch and just learn from them.
Yeah. I really liked this article. I thought it was interesting and also entertaining to read. Yeah, and some of the stories that the kids experienced were kind of intense, I would say, but they were real, so it's important for us to hear those stories and hear what they felt about it so that we can know and understand what's going on. It's good to take that perspective. Yeah, so I really enjoyed hearing their individual stories and just better understanding where they're coming from and how vastly different our English language learners can be, because some of them come from just families where their parents were immigrants and they grew up in the United States but speaking a different language at home, or they could come from various different countries for various different reasons, and so there's just like so much variability and differences between them, so it's good to get to know them.